Okay, good afternoon. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you all managed to get some lunch, and clearly it's our task to keep you awake and engaged while you're digesting your lunch, so we'll see what we can do. This afternoon session, we're going to be building on some of the themes that were touched on this morning, so talking about integrated planning, business planning process, extending the supply chain, as was discussed this morning, not necessarily key concepts, but common sense things. Clearly, through the supply chain planning decisions we're making, if we can maximize profitability, improve cash flow, increase working capital, etc. Clearly those are things we'd want to do, but if it was that straightforward or easy, we wouldn't need to be here discussing it. Conscious that in the audience there are some Anaplan customers, conscious also that quite likely many of you have not come across Anaplan before at all. So what I'd like to do is just spend a few minutes giving you a little bit of background on Anaplan, where we've come from, our view of the world, why we're playing in this space. I'd then like to hand over to my colleague Chris, who's going to take us through some scenarios, some demo scenarios showing how Anaplan underpins some of these extended processes. Following that, we'd actually like then to open up to some interactive discussions. So to include my colleague Peter. Peter, in previous incarnations, actually worked as a supply chain manager, has also been an Anaplan customer in the past, so in a good position to give a sort of rounded view of the world. And as I say, looking at that stage to open up for any interactive discussion or try and get a bit of interaction going. So hopefully the initial material we cover will prompt some questions. If not, certainly we've got a number of things that we can carry on talking. So in terms of background, as I said, a number of you may not have come across Anaplan at all before. What are Anaplan? What do we do? So we are a technology supplier. We provide what we believe is a leading platform in terms of integrated planning capabilities. A company founded from the ground up on that basis on new technology. So the technology holds a number of patents to support working in that integrated sort of way, but also very much to be a business tool. So therefore, to support the business processes. So key things around that. Conscious that in terms of the audience, there's many different industries represented, many different organisations. What do we mean then when we're talking about here a business supporting those business processes? We're a technology vendor. There's been many technology vendors who have stood on a stage like this and said, well, clearly you're facing challenges, but all you need to do is buy our software and it'll be fine, honest. So I'm not going to say that, but certainly the sort of area we're talking about here. So to take maybe your supply chain processes will be at various stages of maturity to start to think about how to extend those, how to get greater collaboration with other areas of the business. What are some of the key considerations we need to take into account? A number of the speakers this morning spoke about, clearly we know there's the requirements for the organizational aspects, process-driven aspects, and then the technology to underpin that. In terms of selecting some of that technology, though, what are some of the key things that we might need to take into account or need to think about for that? So just in terms of some of those areas and talking through some of these, really, so versatility. We spoke about, as a technology vendor, we can say, okay, well, here's a product and it works like this, and simple. You just need to adapt your processes like this and everything will be fine. But clearly, as we've said already, there's many different organizations represented. There's different stages of maturity. So the versatility to adapt to what you need to do that in an effective and timely manner. Scalability, and we'll talk about some of our customer examples as we go through, but global customers, managing end-to-end processes, clearly we're then talking about massive amounts of data to be managed, hundreds of thousands of SKUs potentially, billions, literally billions, tens of billions of cells of data to be considered for forward-looking what-if scenario planning. So the ability to handle that amount of data, but to do that in a real time, so we can say, as an organization, individuals looking at particular scenarios, making planning assumptions, decisions, to be able to see the effects of those in real time, to be able to pass that on to other members of the organization for comment, for feedback. So the scalability and the real-time aspect. Connected. So again, it's come out in a number of the discussions earlier during the day. how to be more effective in terms of just a collaborative way. Who are the other individuals and departments within the organization that we need to be working with, that we need to be taking input from, but also to understand how our decisions are affecting the other areas of the business. Again, as we said before, if it was that simple to do that in a connected way, we would have cracked it already. So selecting an underlying technology, we can actually support that. And again, going through the two areas at the bottom there. So foresight, very much, so we can think about technologies that might give us consolidated reporting across different business areas, so we know where we are, where we've been, but actually, what's next? What do we need to do? As soon as we see a report of where we're at, but okay, what's going to change? What happens if we do that differently? What happens if there's more change in the world now than ever before, we could say. How's that going to affect us? What are some of the planning assumptions, or what are some of the scenarios we need to build in to be able to foresee that and make the right decisions to support it? And finally, there, self-service. So the ability to, as a business user within our area of the business and connecting with these extended parts of the business, to be able to use this as an integrated business planning tool. So what we mean there is sort of self-service, self-sufficiency, really, to say, okay, we need, our business is going to adapt over time, our requirements are going to adapt over time. How can we actually extend a solution to accommodate that? Do we need to be reliant on armies of programmers writing reams of code to try and change things? So we would view that very much, that it needs to be a business tool in the hands of the people who are doing the job and know what they need to do. So we said there, a technology vendor providing the underlying technology capabilities, but clearly there's a bigger picture to paint. So it's not just about underlying technology. What is the business functionality we're delivering? So Anaplan provides what we call the underlying platform that we've spoken about there. But in terms then of business functionality, we provide a large number of out-of-the-box apps to sit on top of that. So these are apps to address individual business requirements, and we're going to talk about some of these as we go through and show some of that functionality. So load and go applications, which can be used as is or extended, and again, extended typically by business teams who are saying, yes, we need to adapt this, we need to modify this in some way to make it more relevant to our business, better mapping onto our processes. As an Anaplan customer, you get the ability to download and use these apps, either as is, or as I say, tailored, using them standalone or in combination with a number of apps to support an end-to-end process. So that's the technology, the business application aspect to it. But what about the broader considerations, broader implications? As we keep saying, it's not just about the technology. It's about the organizational structure. Some of the barriers to success can be, as we've heard already earlier in the day, organizational boundaries, cultural aspects, overall, where we are in terms of maturity of processes. So Anaplan isn't seeking to conquer the world across all of those areas. We work with a number of established business partners, both focused business partners to develop and configure specific functionality as required, but also the end-to-end consultancy processes. So the likes, the large consultancy organizations, the likes of PwC, Deloitte, Accenture, McKinsey, etc., as you see up here, all have dedicated Anaplan practices. So we're working with you to work on those end-to-end processes, but underpinned by the Anaplan capabilities that we've described before. So the flexibility, the interconnected aspects of Anaplan. So Anaplan business partners there, but what about who do we work with? Who are some of our main customers? And I'll talk through a couple of examples in a little bit more detail in a moment. Yeah, so some large global organizations out there, organizations who are very mature, very sophisticated in terms of their overall supply chain planning capabilities, across many areas, many industries. And our engagement with each of these, it's not a one-size-fits-all capability. It depends where is this organization currently, where are they starting, what are the next obstacles they need to overcome, what are the next stages they need to go through. But there's probably a common theme across all of these customers. All of them started by saying, if only we could do this, if only we could better connect to this additional data or information that we need to make better planning decisions. If only we could combine that additional information to calculate what would be the effect of this through that sort of what-if planning, and what's the downstream effect. If we do it like this, what's going to be the implication? As we said, in terms of the theme of the presentation, what's the effect to our profitability, cash flow, etc. So the areas on the left-hand side there. These organizations covering each of those disciplines, not all of them doing all of these areas. And for reference, a typical Anaplan implementation can be very much an iterative sort of process where we start out solving one specific business problem and then growing from that. I think in the initial kickoff session this morning, we were talking about large SAP sort of programs. I think the figure that's mentioned, $1 billion investment, multi-year program. That's not a typical Anaplan engagement. A typical engagement starts to solve a specific business problem and then growing from that as the knowledge and understanding of the capability that it brings in terms of that interconnected, supporting that interconnected and integrated planning capability. That's where Anaplan then starts to go into some of the large projects that we see. So to give a couple of examples on those, so picking a couple of the logos here. So Unilever, obviously a very large SAP customer, but actually a very large Anaplan customer as well. As you'd expect, they were quite mature and sophisticated in terms of the processes they had in place and many complex systems to underpin those. What they were conscious of, though, was that in certain areas, they were actually becoming very dependent on standalone solutions, predominantly based on Excel, to pull this information together. So it's extracting information from relevant systems, pulling that together to try and combine that information to try and do the modeling, scenario planning, what-if analysis. So Unilever undertook an extensive evaluation looking at, okay, what are technologies out there that can help us overcome this, try and do this in a more joined-up process. And a number of the organizations, some of the other vendors present at this event as well, that Unilever actually evaluated. They selected Anaplan to replace and to provide a more comprehensive and joined-up approach across the areas as flagged there. But again, as I said before, that wasn't a big bang approach. That wasn't a case of, okay, we're going to do all of this overnight. That actually started off in the long-term capacity planning area, proved the solution there and extended out across, and proving the capability, and building expertise around that. So they have been a customer since around 2015, established a global center of excellence to then underpin the global processes based on Anaplan around these areas. As shown on the top layer there, though, and coming back to the point I made before, that was very much based around the requirement to fit in and manage their processes, their business, their process. It's not a case of saying, here's Anaplan, this is the way you need to work. It's a case of, here's Anaplan, an enabling technology in the way that it's described before, but actually how does it fit in your organization? So your products, your models, your hierarchies, your processes, dependencies, etc. And we can bring some of these things out as we go through. Just briefly, another organization, as an example, Kimberly-Clark. So again, large organization, many established processes in place. What they were conscious of, though, that they were, again, very much acting in a siloed manner. So the supply chain planning processes, the S&OP processes, were very much in isolation. They weren't tied with any sort of corporate strategy, objectives, KPIs, and so on. In fact, acting very much in a standalone basis, and again, very much spreadsheet driven. So as a couple of the examples of the underlying processes there, again, large users of SAP using APO, but actually in their previous state, we're actually then pulling data out of that into multiple spreadsheets, so spreadsheet per manufacturing site, rolling those up according to regions and product lines to do their demand and supply planning, then pulling that together in yet further spreadsheets in terms of the S&OP planning, and again, reporting on that and representing that kind of on a manual basis or via individual spreadsheets or PowerPoints. So again, they selected Anaplan following an extensive evaluation process to consolidate on a single platform to support that from an end-to-end perspective. So as you say there, so a single platform providing higher levels of collaboration, so provide an immediate effect. So what if just scenario plan to say, okay, if we do this, should we do this? Who else needs to give an input into that? Who else needs to understand and contribute to that? So, and again, in the similar basis to Unilever, this was started on a small basis, but very much grown to a global solution, extended into the finance teams, also extended into the workforce planning aspects as well, so becoming an integrated planning platform. I think rather than talk any more detail right here and now about these examples, just repeating the fact that these have grown from individual, effectively point solutions to support broader integrated business processes, to the extent that now they're actively looking, saying, okay, where else can we use Anaplan? How else can we use Anaplan to support some of these processes or to extend what we're trying to do? Rather than me talk more about that, what I'd like to do is hand over to Chris to go through a couple of examples of where, how we would use Anaplan to show those.
I'm hiding behind you. Thanks for doing that. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Greg. My name's Chris Brydges. I work for Anaplan. Been with Anaplan for about just over 3 years. And I cover all sorts of areas, not just supply chain. I cover finance. I cover workforce planning. I cover everything because Anaplan is a platform and it can be used for all of those sorts of things. And I want to get some of that across to you today. I think I've got about 20 minutes of demonstration where we're going to look at just a couple of aspects of Anaplan. And I hope that'll whet your appetite. And then after I've finished, we're going to have a little bit of a Q&A with Peter. And I do urge you to come up with some questions while I'm demoing, so we can really test him. Okay. So have a think about some questions that you'd like to ask Peter or Greg or me at the end of that session. So this is the Anaplan website. I will draw your attention to this box in the middle called apps, and please do go to the website and have a look at some of the apps. I've already logged in, and this is my Anaplan workspace. And I think it's worth spending a moment or two just to tell you what you're looking at. Anaplan is a cloud-based planning and modeling platform. And for those who are interested, and I think I am, it's multi-tenanted cloud software. Well, what on earth does that mean? It means that everyone, all of our customers operate on the same code. They all operate on the same version of the software. Now, I used to work years ago, I used to work for IBM, and before that for a company called SSA with BPIX, which some of you may or may not remember. And when everyone rang up, they'd say, well, what version are you on? What patch are you on? Are you on patch 3, rolling bug fix 6, April? Oh, you're not? We'll upgrade to that one. Your problems all will go away. And of course, they wouldn't. All our customers are on the same code. They don't care what version they're on anymore. And when you go to a website, you don't care what version of the software you use. All you want to know is it will work and it will work properly. So I'm in my ring-fenced part of the Anaplan cloud. I appreciate that it's not the best of displays, but you can see I'm logged in as me, and it's in my part of the workspace. And I will just talk through some of these models that I've got here. So I've got some models that surround inventory, workforce planning. Oops, that's a bit loud, wasn't it? Location strategy. Have we got the right people in the right place? We've got house builders using us for plot analysis. You've probably got one strangely named one in there. No, not on this screen. One called Ice Cream. I've got project planning. People are using us to connect all sorts of parts of their business. And although they may start off doing a little finance project or doing a category planning project, they suddenly realize they can start linking these together. And then the nirvana of integrated business planning actually becomes a reality. So when people start off and they open Anaplan for the first time, it's a blank canvas. You can create whatever you want. But we realize that a lot of our customers don't want to start off from that blank canvas. They want to see what other people have done, maybe a straw man, maybe something that will accelerate them along their path. And so we created this thing called the App Hub, a number of apps that have been developed by us, our partners, in conjunction with our customers as well. So we could look at these via, by industry. It could be higher education, banking, manufacturing, shipping. We could look at these by whether they're provided by Anaplan or an Anaplan partner, and you saw some of the lists earlier. Or we could look at, say, supply chain. And we could have a look at some of the apps that are on there for supply chain. So everything, we may go and have a look at bill of materials costing later, but statistical forecasting for manufacturing, shipping, rough cut capacity planning, all sorts of areas that may or may not apply to your particular part. But I urge you, do go and have a look at those. If I wanted to go to the rough cut capacity planning app, which I know has just been put up here, I can see some information about it. But as an Anaplan customer, I can click Get App, and that is provisioned in my workspace, and they don't cost anything. They're free. Okay? So once you're an Anaplan customer, you have access to around 150 apps. When you first go and have a look at them, scroll to the bottom, there's a beer drinking one there as well, just to show you the capabilities, the breadth of the functionality that Anaplan can be put to. Okay, let's get on. Let's close this down. Let's go back to my workspace, and let's take a fairly broad view to begin with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to, my browser's expired. There we go, let's log in again. I didn't plan that, by the way. So we're going to open up a model, we called it S&OP, and it really tries to cover some of the aspects that you may be doing in a demand and supply environment. So let me talk you through some of the things that we're doing on this particular view. So it may be that you start off on the demand side looking at the statistical forecasting that you want to do in your business. So it may well be by product you want to see what method of forecasting is giving you the least error rates. And unfortunately for me, it's always the one that's most difficult to say, multiplicative decomposition. Surely it could come up with something simpler for me. But here I'm able to go and change that sort of information, maybe go back and look through my history and see where I have maybe issues here and start to enter different numbers. And once I've got some numbers in here, it's maybe asking me for some reasons why. Let me just put SCL in there because I can't think what else to type at the moment. And then when I come back to my statistical forecast, maybe instead of using my actuals, I want to use my adjusted numbers. So I get something that's actually much easier to say, which is always a relief for me. Now, I'm not suggesting that all of you are going to do statistical forecasting, but let me explain. This isn't something that is rigid within Anaplan. This is something that you can build yourselves. Now, I come from a retail background, as some of you may know. And I'm not a technical person, yet I can use Anaplan. I can build models in Anaplan because I understand when someone explains to me what the business process is. You do not need to be a technical wizard to use Anaplan at all. If you can use Excel and you understand your business processes, then you'll be able to put models together in Anaplan. Okay, let's go slightly further forward. If we were looking beyond our statistical forecast and maybe bringing in data from our marketing department, our sales departments, because we want to get that consensus plan, then I can do so. As you can see, I've got information here where I may be pulling information from my promotion planning app. That could be promotion planning with Anaplan. That could be promotion planning from SAP, from any other system that you particularly use. But we can pull that data in here. And then that gives the opportunity for the marketing team at a brand level this time, rather than at a SKU level, to put their information in, and that cascade through the hierarchy. But equally, I could start saying, well, how about new products that I want to add? Let's just say I wanted to go and add some new product, and you can see I've already added one. Let's call it SCL2 in this particular case. Let's say that is allied to that particular brand, and we'll call it SCL2. There we go. And we'll have it introduced in that data as well, so we can see those numbers flowing through. And if I start to estimate what my sales numbers are, and then assume it's going to behave like other products, and then I can start to have a look at how the seasonality of that product will be affected if I base it on a brand composite, as opposed to maybe a product-specific composite hierarchy, composite seasonality. So you can see that what Greg said was Anaplan works in real time. And it does. It can process millions, multi-millions of rows of data and give you an answer straight away. Now, I've been given a spreadsheet by a large manufacturing company to work on. It takes me 20 minutes to open the spreadsheet. Okay? I don't think that's something that most people in the modern era can work with. What you need to be able to do is actually open it up, say, well, what if we did this? What if we did that? And be able to see the answers quickly, and then be able to make decisions based on that quickly. Okay. So having done my statistical marketing forecast, I may want to go through and have a look at the other sides of my demand plan. Maybe my growth on the sales side, and how those numbers cascade down into a regional forecast. But what I'm going to end up with is the reviews. So I'm very conscious that I've only got 20 minutes of your time in total. But it may well be that what we want to do is jump to a pre-S&OP view, where what I'm doing is bringing in all of the areas of my business, my finance area, my marketing area, my statistical demand area, my sales plan, and then actually coming up with a proper demand plan based on that. Now, to put this in perspective, it's going to get loud again. Hang on. Oh. Put this in perspective. Anaplan uses Anaplan internally. So we will sit around every Friday. Sit around, it sounds very relaxing, doesn't it? We will sit around a table every Friday, and we will go through our numbers, but we will work on screen. So nobody's going, you can't hear the rustle of spreadsheets going backwards and forwards and someone saying, well, that's my number, or that's my number, or SAP's down, or Oracle's down, and we can't do anything. We can see it all on screen, and we can make decisions straight away based on that. Is this something that we want to do going forward? So this is actually quite an involved app, but this is one that you can download from the App Hub. And I could go on around the supply side of the calculations around labour planning, inventory outlook, etc. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to come out of this model because there was one that I provisioned this morning from the App Hub, I thought was actually quite interesting. And I hope you do too. And it's about bill of materials costing, which is actually quite a specific specific application. So this is one. If you went to the App Hub and you provisioned this in your workspace, this is what you would get. It will tell you, well, this is the process you probably need to go through. Let's go to a launch page. This is what you need to do to set it up. But let's jump through that. Let's just assume that I've already set this up. And I've taken some flat SKU data out of SAP in this particular case. And I said to Anaplan, well, okay, go and make me some hierarchies out of that. And that's exactly what this has done. So within this view here, what we're looking at is we're looking at our requirements planning. So I've got all my finished good products, and I've got the plan for them going forward for my next few months. As I click each server, it will tell me what the components are that need to make up those items, as you can see. And what we can also see is, in this particular case, I'm using if you forget the Z at the beginning, it may be a little difficult to read, but I'm actually using SAP codes here. So this is finished goods, semi-finished goods here, and then manufactured, so SFGM. If I clicked on my steel, we can see that's raw materials measured in the unit of measure of square inches, for example. And again, screws, if I go to them, they're actually raw materials. So what we can start to see is all of the components that go to make up my item. Okay, so let's carry on. Because we're going to concentrate on this. We'll concentrate on this particular item. What I want to do now is take it down through to a lower level of detail. One of the things Anaplan is really good at doing is crunching granular levels of data. Now, I've worked in areas where people say, well, we can never go below a brand or product level. We can't actually get down to SKU level because there may be 20 SKUs for each product. Here we've got, I'm using a 9-level BOM in this particular case. And what we're doing is we're looking at all the costs associated with this particular server. If I changed to being a tablet, we can see that actually my processing costs rather than my material costs are actually a far larger proportion of this item than my Cloud Light Pro Server 9100. What we can also do is we can start to say, well, okay, these are my my procured goods, my semi-finished goods that are procured. I can know that because it's got a P at the end of it. It's the SAP code with a P. What if I went and changed the price of those individual items? So if I went and changed the price of my 4 terabyte hard drive, and I made that, in this case, $50, is that actually going to, well, it does, it updates straight away. All of the items, all of the costs will update, and everything will roll right the way through the hierarchy for costs. So this will work if it's a bill of materials, but equally, think about a cost in a warehouse of someone picking or putting away an item. I can think of one of our customers who does just that. They're looking at warehouse costs, and as soon as they make a change to maybe an hourly rate, that ripples right through the model. So what I want to do is just move on to how we would look at this as an individual items, but also the costs associated with each work center, and being able to say, well, okay, for this work center, for example, maybe I know there's something wrong with work center 7. What if I changed it to work center 1? What difference would that actually make? And I can see actually my costs are going to be far higher if I went and did that. But then being able to take it right the way through and saying, well, okay, where are my margins being lost? Where am I making money? So can I just override the price, or are there other things that I can do? So obviously I could override the price here and go and change that to maybe being a different price, and then seeing those numbers change. It still probably needs to be a little bit higher than that. I probably should put that, change that work centre so it's not work centre 1 anymore, it's work centre 7. But taking it just to the final stage, one of the things that people do is they say, well, okay, what if I did this, or what if I did that? But I want to actually make some comparisons between more than one version. So Anaplan can hold several versions of your plan. So in here, for example, if I decide, I'm going to give you, this is a bit of a cheeky example. If I decided in this Pro Series server chassis, I actually swapped this out to being a cheaper chassis in my version 2, and I clicked on my version 2 as being my final version. We can actually see, well, it's probably very difficult for you to see, but my profit has jumped to 342% on this, which is probably a little excessive. So I probably wouldn't go that far. But what a lot of our customers are doing, including those customers that Greg mentioned earlier, is they're saying, well, how about this scenario? What if, what's our post-Brexit strategy? What is our strategy if this trade deal happens or that trade deal happens? They're the sorts of things that are important. And if I dive behind the scenes, because I'm an Anaplanner, so I can do that, and you can see how this is put together, not only can you see the complete structure of the model, but you can see every single change that anyone's ever made to this model. So when someone says, Chris, why did you change that number? And I went, I didn't. They say, oh, yes, you did. And they can go and have a look here. When I changed it, what I changed it to, and if I put comments in, why I changed it. And the very fact that you can look at the complete audit trail, restore the model to a previous point in time, have those different versions of the model, but also, as my final view, is that it will self-document for you. One of the problems I used to have when I worked in on the other side of the business, if you like, is someone would put in a system and then spend 3 months documenting it, charging me however much a day to document the system, which should be self-documenting. Here, everything that is done in Anaplan, oops, I've gone in too far, that's the one I'm looking for. It will show me how all of the data flows through the model. So the IP now exists in the model rather than in my head. Now, at that point, I think what I'd like to do is, you've seen some software, you've seen Greg chat. Let's actually talk to someone who knows what they talk about, which is Peter. So I'm sure you've got some questions for him, but I'll just warm him up a bit. What I'd like to ask you, what do you think the main considerations people should take into account when they're considering a system like this to fit in with their supply chain processes?
The first thing I would think about is how well defined are your processes in the first instance? You could put the best system in the world around a poorly defined process, and you're not necessarily going to get the best outcome. So if I think first of all about what some of the best principles are around good supply chain planning process, and then look at what you should be considering in a system to help support some of that. So to me, first of all, the business should be aligned off one version of the truth. If you ask someone what's the number in the plan, they should know exactly which plan you're referring to. There shouldn't be different versions flying around all over the place. The process should be properly integrated. So by that I mean, if we're starting off with our new products review, the outcomes of that should be flowing through to our demand review. And the supply team should be, when they're coming up with their supply plans, they should be basing those off the back of what's come out of that demand review process. Equally, that's what should be flowing through to the financial review and ultimately up to the management business reconciliation review. One final point I'd like to pull out is, again, it's mentioned earlier, but around scenario planning. So we can make the best plan in the world off the back of what we know, but there's always going to be unknowns out there. And the best way to respond to those unknowns is if we've already modelled some of them in the past as potential things that might happen. Okay, so leading us on then to what we should be looking at for a system. So if we want to achieve one version of the truth, so everyone's alignment across the business, what should we be looking for in a system to help us do that? Well, most modern systems will have the concept of versioning. But interestingly enough, obviously, Excel doesn't have a concept of versioning. And we mentioned earlier, many people are still using Excel at various points through their supply chain planning process. And no matter how hard you try, whether you try and sort of say, the July plan is always saved in this folder, inevitably you're going to get someone saving a version final or final version 2.final. It happens, and you can't quite find out what the one version of the truth is you're looking for. So if you have a system that is properly versioned, you select your July plan, and you know from there on, every view you're looking at, no matter which screen of the model you're in, no matter whether you're in finance, whether you're in supply, whether you're in demand, you're looking at the July plan. In terms of a system that's truly integrated, well, we spoke earlier about how Anaplan is one platform. Many systems out there will claim to be an integrated business planning tool, so be able to offer you the complete end-to-end all the way through from your new product review, through the demand supply, and ultimately up to the financial reconciliation. But often what you find is they are different technologies that have been acquired over time. They've been branded together as one product, but they have clunky interfaces in between them. You know, in the best case, that means people spend time trying to transfer the data between the systems, or in the worst case, it means you have errors if you've got inconsistent master data and the data's not flowing through properly. Lastly, around scenario planning. Well, ultimately, you just need a tool that's simple to use and quick to pull together a plan. A scenario is simply just a different version of your plan with some different assumptions, some different key drivers in there. Now, if it takes you 2-3 weeks to update your plan because it's so clunky, it's not properly integrated, you're having to download data into Excel and do offline processes, you're going to be struggling to pull together your plan, let alone scenarios around that. So having one true integrated end-to-end solution that allows you to say, well, let's change an assumption here in my demand piece, and how does that affect my supply? How does that affect my logistics? How does that affect my warehousing plan? If you can all see that in one place with a click of a button in real time, your scenario planning becomes trivial. So those are some of the things that I would look out for in a system to help support a best-in-class supply chain planning process.
Thank you. So over to you. Any questions you'd like to ask of Peter, Greg, or me? Yeah, thank you.
It strikes me from what you've explained that if you've defined a process, albeit in Excel, but that it works well, and your ambition is to make it robust and repeatable and quick, then Anaplan is a good tool for you because you've got a prototype, you've already defined how it's going to work, and now you're making it sustainable and robust. But it doesn't address the fact that you're still not using the original systems that were deficient in the first place. I think the Kimberly-Clark example was good. The whole page seemed to be about Excel, despite the fact that they were using APO. Are you pitching this as a replacement to APO, or something that still carries on top of it? And this is for your S&OP planning, but APO is still used for the operational planning.
Good question. Greg mentioned earlier, often the way that Anaplan engagements start is with a particular problem. So it might be, the question would be, why do you have those Excels in your process? And the chances are that your system couldn't deliver a particular piece of functionality, so that's where the Excel spreadsheets come in. It's to solve that particular problem. And very often that's where Anaplan engagements start. Someone says, well, we've got all these Excel spreadsheets to support these bits the system can't do. Can you do that inside Anaplan? And so the first part of an engagement, or what we might call the first release, will solve that particular problem. But very often at that stage, the clients start to realise the power that Anaplan can bring and the benefits. I spoke about having the integrated process. Of course, if you're having to pause here and download the data into Excel, do some manipulation, solve a particular task before loading it back up again, you might struggle to call that an integrated process. You've certainly got some breaks in the chain. So if, as part of the first release, Anaplan solves this particular business problem, the next natural question to ask is actually, well, can it replicate what we're doing in this system as well, and therefore join the two bits together? and you get more and more links in the chain until eventually, hopefully, you may end up at that holy grail of integrated business planning where you've got your complete end-to-end dynamically produced with all your drivers in one place, all your KPIs in one place.
Any others? No? Well, on behalf of Greg and Peter and Anaplan, I'd like to say thank you very much for attending and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.